Welcome to Alex and Annie, the real women of vacation rentals. I'm Alex,
And I'm Annie.
and we are here today for episode 101, not Dalmatians, 101 podcast
Yeah.
episodes, and our July 1st of the month bonus episode. Annie, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as always. And I cannot believe that we're at 101. That is just an insane number that I would never have thought we would get to.
Yeah, especially after episode 1 that we almost didn't hit record, and then episode 2 that we had to record, I think, at least 4 times with poor Amber Hurdle. That's been such a just a bright star for both of us, but yeah, it was a little rocky in the very early days, but my gosh, so much has come and gone and changed in the past 100 episodes that we've been doing this, but we're very excited, and we just wanted to say thank you today to everybody who's been a fan of the show and who has supported us and has just really given us that, courage and drive to keep going. So we're really excited for hopefully another 100 and many more.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it falls perfect timing into my 30 days of thankful. I'm definitely thankful for you and thankful for the people that have supported us and thankful for this podcast, just as it's taught me a lot about myself and a lot about the people in the industry and a lot about how much work we have to do, which is
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, absolutely. So we also have a guest host with us today. So this episode is a little bit different than normal. We have Edward joining us, who Edward has worked alongside the podcast for the last few months and has been a great source of guidance in some of our decisions that we've made with the show. So, without further ado, Edward, the ghost host. It's good to see you as well.
Hi. Very nice to be here. Very honored to be here on such a special milestone episode. And as somebody who's worked with the show for a little bit, I'm really not surprised that you've hit this milestone now and you had tens of thousands of downloads, became a top 5% podcast, and having been heard in over 6 continents across many tens of countries. It is apparent why that is the case because from the many podcasts that I've seen and worked with, there are really not many that have this level of branding and this level of attention to detail. So this has really been a big labor of love, and I've seen that in every nook and cranny of the podcast itself. So super
Well,
excited to
thank
be here.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's so
Thank God
funny how
Alex is
things
organized.
oh gosh. But it's funny how things you just fall in line and people ask us this all the time of did you plan all this out before you got started? And the answer is no. We really just put one foot in front of the next and just kept going as we went through this process. But obviously Annie and I have been within the marketing world for many years, and I think having that experience helped us make some of those early on decisions that we were thinking about where we would hypothetically want to be down the line and not just throwing things out there. It was thoughtful, but not really planned, if that makes sense. But we're excited to have you here today, and thank you for all your help on the show.
Awesome. Awesome. Super honored to be here. All right. So a great milestone has been hit. And with that comes questions about what's next, what's coming, what can people expect? What are some of the, because I know there's a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. I know there's a bunch of stuff that you're working on and a lot of great things to come. What would you like to reveal first, or would you like to chat about first on the different new initiatives that are being taken on now?
Annie, I'll let you take it.
I think we have a whole lot of things. I'm not even sure which one is the best one to do. I think that one of the things that we were mindful of with the podcast is that we wanted to highlight stories of people that were really integral to the growth of the industry. And what that led us to was that there's a lot of focus on the property managers, which there should be. There's property managers. That's what the business is all about. But we have this entire ecosystem of suppliers and people that sponsor the events and people that are the catalyst for having the large events and being able to get us all together and funding some of the big crazy things that we get to do in this business. And so one of the things that we want to be able to do is we want to highlight those suppliers, and those are our technology providers, the various people within the industry that support all the vacation rental managers. And we want to make sure that we're highlighting those and continue to be mindful as we move on. And so with that, we've thought about what is something that we can do to continue to tell their stories and share their stories. And so something that we've come up with is that we would like to take our best 52 episodes over the last year and highlight it in a book. And we want to share that book with everybody within the industry. And we want to open it up to the segment of the industry that I always call that big piece of the pie, the short term rentals, because the short term rental industry is using a lot of these vendors, a lot of these suppliers. And I think this is an opportunity through this book, through our stories, to bring these two pieces of the industry together and to have larger conversations and just make our industry stronger and more enriching to everybody that participates in it.
Yeah, and then I think if when we look back on our episodes and we've been really trying to break them down by categories and find the ones that speak the most to some of the points that we believe in and that we've tried to drive home with the podcast. And really what that has shown is we have these great episodes with amazing minds that come and share with us. But really we're talking about a topic within vacation rentals, but in a lot of cases, it's wrapped around a bigger story of a leadership journey or professional development and just some really incredible learnings that are standout and really just show the depth of the people that work within the vacation short-term rental industry. So I think in this book, what we're going to be able to do is to go back and look at some of these episodes, but also really bring out the story of the why behind these guests and what their companies have done and maybe what that learning was that could help someone else on their journey to not be able to make mistakes or to be able to just do things better. As we always say, you can't connect the dots when you're in the situation. You can only connect the dots when you're further ahead looking back. And for us, that's just truly been the mantra of the show. And I think to now be able to tie in a more truly a thoughtful way within this book of these leadership journeys is going to be really exciting. So we're very excited about it. There's going to be a lot more details to come. We are just in the infancy stages of this, but the plan is to have this released by the women's conference in December.
Amazing, amazing. Sounds like a very exciting project to take on. Any hesitations or any fears before taking on such a big project?
I will say
Yes.
we are not the, yeah, yeah. And he says, yes, we are not doing the entire process. We have Rebecca Lombardo, who's a dear friend of ours and has been a great supporter of the podcast that's going to be helping us as we've got Edward as a ghost host and Rebecca as a ghost writer that she's going to help us with this project. We're not quitting our day jobs to do this. I think it's something that we can do. And with her help is going to be really exceptional. But yeah, is it scary? All of it's scary. Committing to doing something like this. And right now we're putting it out there to the world that we're doing it. So we can't go back on it now.
But we did that with the podcast. We put it out
Yeah.
there and we did it. So we just got to continue to go down that road.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be super rewarding to have something tangible. You can listen to a
Yeah.
podcast and it's on the web and it's everywhere. Just having something you can hold in your hand. I'm old school like that. That just brings a whole new level of joy to creating something. All right, so we have the book coming out soon, sometime. I don't want to set any expectations. What's on your mind for the future of the show, and especially with how your industry is evolving, with short-term rentals in general just becoming disrupted by this whole Airbnb motion, and Airbnb becoming one of the top 10 trendiest businesses that people want to do on TikTok and stuff like that. With all of these disruptions coming in, how do you see the show evolving? Are there any new narratives that you plan to take on, or any guests that you might not have previously had on that are potentially disruptors in this type of industry as well?
I think we really want to be mindful of, again, I joke about the pie, but the intersection of vacation rentals and short-term rentals. And there's a divide between the two, and there doesn't need to be. And we know, and there's a lot of other people within our industry that also have podcasts and also have other content creators within the space that recognize that we need to have a unified voice if we're going to stave off regulations. And so regulations is a very big hot button within both short-term and vacation rentals. But until we can come together and like pool our breadth of work and knowledge and obviously the funding that is sitting there, we're just going to be fighting fires on multiple fronts. And so I think for Alex and I, and again, other people, we want to merge the two together and make sure that vacation rentals and short-term rentals is one entity. And then when people from the consumer standpoint, or even people when they're in communities and thinking about regulations. They're not looking at a professional company versus someone who has a rental versus somebody who's on Airbnb as any different, that we're all together, but we're not being spoiled by the bad actions of, say, one person spoiling the whole bunch. And so I think that kind of advocacy within our industry to come together is really important, just as much as advocacy within communities is important.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's really about finding what that uniting voice is, what that rallying cry is for the industry. And I think on both sides, I think there's more in common than there is difference. And we talk about the bad apples on this show. And of course, nobody wants to have bad apple guests or bad apple hosts that you rent from. But that's a very small majority or small minority of people within the space. I think most people whether they just use Airbnb, they're running good businesses. So I think the more that we can bring these two sides together and potentially have some different type of roundtable discussions about it, and just really let's be curious and let there that might be a good bridge to bring people together. We've got an episode coming, I believe it's next week, that is going to be a revenue management roundtable. So a similar format where we've got have a few different people that come in and sit on that. It would be great to do that with some of the leaders in STR and just let's figure out what are things that we can help you with and vice versa. So hopefully that will be coming here soon. I think we've got interest to participate from the STR side. So it should be exciting.
Awesome. Very nice. And so for me, as somebody who is not a part of the industry, immediately the question that comes to my head is what are some things that you already see that you as an industry or maybe as an industry standard could learn from the other side of the Airbnb and the short-term rentals and vice versa? What are some things that you feel like you could teach towards the practices that you see there in your experience?
I think that the way that people are looking at short-term rentals now is much more from a investment standpoint and really looking at managing those assets from that lens. And I say that because most of us who've been in the industry for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, most of us actually don't own any short-term rentals of our own. And it's only now in the last couple of years that I had a friend ask me, she was like, how many do you own? Like just assuming that I had a bunch of them. I said, none. My husband and I now we're finally realizing like we definitely should be investing in real estate also and trying to go down that path. And that will also be something that we can touch on and the learnings that I figure out in this process. 'Cause that's going to be a whole new world for us. But I think that the way that the newer age manager is looking at this from not only how they're getting the loans for the properties, what the investment value is, how they're really running their numbers, I think that's interesting for our side to look at a little bit more closely. We've all, as professional companies, we've all done rental projections and we work with realtors. But I think there's more of an intersection there that is a little bit more just more transparent on what the numbers actually look like for somebody that's trying to make this into a portfolio for them, not just one property that they're going to buy and list with a rental company or on their own, but really grow it into a business. Just learning more on the business practices of this group. When you go to their conferences, the topics they talk about are very different. They are talking about how to get funding for these properties, and it's just a different mentality than what we've all had. But I think just being aware and open to hearing is going to be a big eye opener for all of us.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think it's just a matter of, you said it before, Alex, like that we have more similarities than we do differences. And it's very easy to put up walls and just go about our day, but not realizing that we all impact each other on either side. And so being in communication with each other and sharing best practices and sharing things that work and don't work. And when maybe again, the people that had been in the business for 25, 30 years, maybe we're not as adaptable as these ones that have just come in through COVID, where they really had to be scrappy. And we'd been scrappy through our career for sure. But I think COVID created a whole different skill set that we didn't have to learn. We weren't trying to start a business. We were trying to save a business. So it was a little different. But again, there's so much more that we can do together than we can do separate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, an alignment initiative is always great, and there's definitely growth to be had on both ends of the equation. So I'm a big believer in saying very loudly and letting the universe bring what you want it to bring. So, who are some individuals or maybe some companies or some industries or just anybody who you think you want to have on the show that you haven't yet had the opportunity to interview?
Oh, wow. We have a list.
Ooh, yeah, I know. I was gonna say, normally it's on my
Uh,
whiteboard, but I
yeah.
had to erase it last week because I was working on a project. Gosh, it's a good question. And I think there's a lot of people that we want to have on the show. It's gonna be hard to come up with just a couple to name. That's one of probably the biggest surprises that people say to us when they ask, "How do you think of topics?" And have you run out of people to interview? Absolutely not. Like there are still so many people that we would like to have on the show that have expressed interest to come on the show. And really, just as the world turns, as news happens, there's just going to be more and more to talk about. I heard Marcus Radar from Hostaway was on a little news clip on Sarah and T's podcast this morning about how they raised $170 million, the largest funding round of any short-term rental technology to date. And that just happened. I think that's super interesting. And Marcus was actually one of our early episodes and talked a lot about leadership and the journey that you're on and how you're planting seeds all the time, but you don't know until you've gotten your big break. And it's not that it's a big lucky break. It's something you've been working on for a long time. So I think to have him on and really dive into more of what he's learned in this process, because I think his words are definitely ringing true at this point, he would be one for me. But I don't know, Annie, do you have anybody else at the top of your list?
Yeah, there's a couple of that we've talked about. Like we looked at like Ed Milet, like having him on. We've talked about having Heather Monahan talking about personal branding. She's not within our business, but someone who's really spectacular at personal branding. And then I would say having people from Bacasa. We want to have Rob Graber on, and obviously his start with Bacasa and where he is, and it's been pretty tumultuous. But would love to get his thoughts on where they're at and where they're going. And there's just so many amazing people in the industry that we haven't had a chance to talk to. And I think just revisiting some people that maybe we talked to in the beginning that had where they are now. Like we watched some people who were just starting out and the trajectory of their company, talking about Margot from Hostfully, what she's
Mhm.
done with her organization, again, like Marcus at Hostaway. There's just some really great stories to be revisited. So not just having new guests, but I think having some oldies but goodies on.
Yeah, I agree on that. And we often say that in our episodes that will have you back for an update to whoever we're
Yeah.
speaking with. And we want to. I think that's a really good point. I think we can have some great refreshes from some of our best episodes. But yeah, I agree on that too, that bringing in other industries more from a business or leadership or mindset perspective. Ed Milet, if you're listening, we would love to have you
We're
and
putting it
Heather
out
Monahan.
there.
Those are two great ones. But yeah, there's a lot in that space that I think we can pursue, and that those episodes seem to be quite popular when we are talking more on that realm. But yeah, otherwise, I think maybe even somebody from high up within Airbnb would be interesting. Certainly, Rob Graver with Vacasa would like to have him on. And just more into the hotel space. We've done some episodes where we talk to people that are more within hotels or destination marketing and really doing that from the lens of we all represent something different, but you can learn so much from having these different perspectives that they're similarly aligned, but the outcome might be a little bit different. And I think there's so much to learn there. So be much smarter in a year from now, as we are now than we were a year ago, because we learned so much from these guests, and it's the highlight of being able to do this show is have those conversations.
You heard it here, folks. If you have a direct line to any of the aforementioned individuals, then time to
And
reward the show that you've been
you
listening to.
I will s I will say too that I think we wanna have Bill Faith on the show.
Yeah.
We both just listened to his episode. He was on the No BS podcast and talked a lot about what we've been talking about today of how the industry should come together, and I'm sure we won't agree on everything with him, but that's okay. I think there's also some things we certainly will agree on, and he's a leader on the STR side for sure, has a very large following, so I think that would be a good one for us to have come on.
Awesome. So, what has been, and then I know this is going to be a difficult question to answer because there's probably so many things, but if you had to pinpoint what's been the most rewarding part of this 100 episode journey?
I think just the friendships that we've built along the way. I know without question my personal brand building, but also the confidence building that has come along with it. But some of the just really deep friendships that, I mean, Alex and I have been friends, but we're just like sisters now. And I can't imagine doing, I'm going to cry. I can't imagine doing anything without her. Like, it's just
Yeah.
everything that I do in this business is just, I always think of her and how she can participate in it. But I think that you go through various periods in your life and just knowing that you have this kind of tribe of people that are there to uplift you and protect you and cajole you and help you build that confidence and be there like when you need a band-aid for your knee when you fall. I have just been so pleasantly surprised and uplifted by the people that we've met and the friendships that we've made that I can call any number of 20 some people that have directly resulted from this show that I could call and they would be here in a heartbeat to help me out. So it's really just solidified my faith in humanity.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think it really, we didn't start a podcast to make more or new friends, but I think that has definitely been a great result of it that we've made a lot of amazing friends in this process. And I think part of that is, when people hear you talk every week, they feel like they know you better than you know them, of course. But at the same time, that also opens up many different conversations outside of the podcast of people reaching out to us and things that we just have a lot to talk about because they've already heard so much about what we've got going on in our lives or just curious about guests we have on the show or a topic. So I think it's been a great conversation starter for sure. And truly within the last couple of years, I think we've just made incredible friends from doing this. I think we've also been completely humbled that the several people that have reached out that are maybe not people we see all the time that would be our best friends, but just people that have reached out and said thank you for doing the show and for motivating them and just that means everything. And we're not trying to do anything specifically, but I think if we're able to shed some sort of light and positive influence for people, whether they're coming up within the space or are new into the industry, I think that's a great legacy for us to leave with this and just very proud of that.
Amazing. So new friends, great feedback, people educated, entertained, and everything else that comes with running a great show. Any closing statements as you ascend into the hundreds?
Just thank you to everybody. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
we wanted to have Edward come on as a ghost host today just to flip the mic a little bit and have someone ask us the questions just as we reflect back. But we appreciate everybody who's listened and we are excited to bring you many more episodes and of course the book that will be coming out later this year.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate thank you to everybody for your support, for your questions, for listening, for sharing, for everything that you've done to help motivate us to continue to do the show. And we look forward to another 100 plus episodes coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Edward, for joining us today. And if anybody wants to get in touch with us, as always, you can go to our website, alexanddannypodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, send us a message if you want to connect. We love to chat. So thank you again. And we will see you on the next first of the month bonus episode. Thanks, everybody.